What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Single Player Let's Play series. So, in this episode, last episode we got the jetpack upgrade, or rather, not the jetpack upgrade, but we got the leggings done, and we got a decent handful of things done. In this episode, I actually would like to get some energy handled. So, within that, I'm thinking I've actually kind of come up with an idea that I am pretty sure should work. So, why don't we give that a try? One of the things that I've noticed was the innervation dynamo here. This guy's not that expensive. It's just some electrum, some iron, a redstone transmission coil, of course, just some more redstone. And these guys produce RF by giving it redstone or energy-based items. So things that create energy, such as, or things that include redstone in the recipes often. So they're pretty straightforward. And really, they can produce a decent amount of RF. So let's take a look and see. This is going to produce 64,000 RF off of just a single piece of redstone. If we make a few of these and get enough redstone automated, then I think we should be good to go. The problem is that in order to get a lot of redstone, we have to have a lot of redstone, and you might notice that, well, we don't have an infinite supply by any means, but we do have these red orchids. So red orchids have to be planted on redstone ore. I don't have any redstone ore, so the only way to get it is by getting it from Silk Touch. So what I'll have to do is make a tool that I can put Silk Touch on. If I even have Silk Touch, I'm going to have to figure that out as well. And then I'll have to go find some Cinnabar and then Silk Touch it. Because I don't actually know that there is any other form of getting vanilla redstone. I don't think so. Let's go see. Yeah, so aside from an orchid, which is a big pain in the neck, as big as making a Silk Touch book and going and getting it that way, yeah, no, it's not really worth it. So what we can do is go make that Silk Touch book that we'll need and move along from there. Alright, so I have our 8 redstone ore and our 8 red orchids. I don't know that I'll use them all, like I mentioned, but hey, better to have them now and need them later than not have them now and need them later. So, the next thing I want to look into is making a garden close. Now, this is going to be our next kind of, not necessarily hiccup, but certainly it's a pausing point, let's say that, in our process here, because these aren't terribly difficult. I haven't tweaked the recipe now that they're slightly better, but I'm honestly not the kind of person to go through and take advantage of an exploit anyways, so, not really a huge deal to me, but I want to make a few of these, so why don't we look into that? So we should be at this point good to go on making 3 cloches. So that means that for now we can go ahead and put away our, well, I do want those red orchids. I accidentally threw some of them back. So we'll need that. We're going to need another aqueous accumulator, so let's go ahead and get that. And there we go, aqueous accumulator, to which we're going to want some normal fluid ducts. We don't need anything special. We're going to want some item ducts as well. I might make some more. Just because I do like these quite a lot. And then, okay, we're going to want some innervation dynamos. 7 innervation dynamos. Now the last thing I want to get is some flux ducts so that we can actually transfer this power over. And we shall finally be good to go. So we're going to put this over here in this power generation area for now. I'm saying for now because, well, quite frankly, I don't actually like how this is set up. And I very much intend to, at some point, rebuild this building. Because, like my last Let's Play, I really missed... the last Let's Play that we did, single player, I really liked the layout that I had in that one, with having the nice little building for a bunch of power gen. I wouldn't mind going even further beyond than that this time, so we will see how that goes. But that would be cool, in my opinion. So, the way I'm envisioning this is we could do probably 3 right along here of these dynamos. These dynamos do not have to be powered, or cooled rather, is what I meant to say. So they don't need cooling. All they need is the input for their item. And let's see, we'll go ahead and rotate these. Alright, like I said, no input required there. We can go ahead and route our item ducts across. And the cloche should automatically output that item. In fact, I'm going to move this one over. I think it would look better. In my opinion, I actually think it would look best if these were centered. We'll go grab 2 buckets of water real quick to make that work at its maximum efficiency. And now the last piece of the puzzle is energy, which we can just borrow straight from these guys. We don't even have to worry about, we don't really have to worry about the distribution of power. These guys don't really use a lot, so we can just go ahead and route our power in just like so. And actually, you know what? I am going to make this look good. And we will output to the top, and then we can LV wire coil our stuff around. Because I think this is the prettiest way of getting power into something like this, to be real, since it is kind of awkward. And then we can do, let's see, up to here, and then over. This power kickstart is probably good anyways, because these guys do require a little bit of power to get started anyways. But as you can see, we're already outputting items. And since I'm not putting a servo on this quite yet, this is just going to go probably to the first dynamo here. But you can see this is already a constant flow of redstone coming out. So I'm hoping that with as many as we have here, we should actually be doing just fine. Now this is producing a decent bit of power. These guys are already fully empty, but this should produce us plenty of power this way. So let's make sure that this is all routed the way it should be. It appears to be. I might change this a little bit because I don't care for that all that much. So right now, I just realized the reason why we're not getting a bunch of power delivery over here is because right now all the power is currently being focused over here, which for a second really concerned me, but now it makes perfect sense. So I'm going to go grab a few structural ducts so that we can cover this up and make everything match and look great, and then we should be good to go. I think that should be a decent handful of power for sure that will help us out in the future. Because I think, in my opinion, we've been kind of cutting it too close on power for quite a while now, especially ever since I made the giant controller with an AE network and everything. It's kind of like, I mean, you know, I was able to do it, but should I have? Maybe not. Oh, and in fact, we can recycle some of these back into our structural ducts. And like I mentioned, I do want to rebuild this, like fully rebuild it and put it completely different style and everything, because I don't care for this layout, but it's functional for now. You can see this guy's already completely filled up with redstone, and we're filling this one pretty quickly as well. I think 3 cloches may be the right number, and if it's not, we have enough room to add 2 more. So worst case scenario, we will just do that, but I think realistically we should be just fine. And I think everything down here should be good. So as soon as this leadstone energy cell fills, which it's getting already pretty full, we should be able to see a more decisive amount of power going towards what we want it to. And there we go, back to more or less normal. A few things that we could do to make this cooler would be, of course, making conveyor belts instead, which we could do in theory, but I've had some interesting issues with conveyor belts in the past, so I'm kind of wary about doing that. That's why I'm thinking I might just stick with this. But you can see that these cloches are barely taking any power draw at all. And the upside is once we kind of get to a equilibrium for power, we may produce extra redstone, which we can start storing or importing into our network. And that way we don't have to look about for redstone anymore. We just have some readily available for us. So, yeah, it really just kind of depends. But for now, you can see we are slowly but surely, we're working our way up these different innervation dynamos. We're already up to number 3 getting filled and probably nearing completion there. Yeah, we're getting there. But these guys are staying completely full up, producing 40 RF per tick each. So there we go. We're making about 210 extra RF per tick there. Each one of these making 60, so that's going to get us 420 RF per tick, so, you know, this wasn't a great upgrade, but it was definitely reasonable. And the upside is this is highly scalable, so if we want, we could just make a few more cloches and fill a room full of these if we wanted to make even more power. Unfortunately, this pack is not necessarily designed around a bunch of power from just one object, which isn't actually a downside, but there's really not a whole bunch aside from the diesel generator from Immersive Engineering that produces a bunch of power all at once. The diesel generator is pretty much the only thing that I think is in this pack that produces quite as much power compared to everything else. So I'm actually going to keep with what I mentioned. I am legitimately going to make an ender chest to import into our system. Helps if I can spell cyan, which I don't even have anyways. But I figured, you know what, there's no sense in wasting the energy on that, or wasting the redstone on that. If we're going to have extra, we may as well use it for something. Don't know what I'm doing here. There we go. So we will go ahead and get ourselves a cyan ender chest. And, oh, it's a new moon, which means that we'll have mobs. So I'll go mob hunting real quick. Hopefully, in the meantime, we should start seeing the... so we can put that right there. See, isn't that cute? This is nice. I like this, actually, a lot. Alright, so I thought I would come back and actually stop cutting out video because there's something that I was kind of wanting to do that I thought would be cool, at least in theory. So I've got to figure out how I want to do it. But I was thinking it would be neat to do a bridge here that disappeared when you weren't on it, but I don't necessarily know how I want to do that yet. So it would work very easily using sticky pistons. We would go ahead and dig out all of this. We can add a bunch of sticky pistons. And so what I'm thinking is we would have a whole bunch of sticky pistons. Technically they'd be at this level, the level below. Cool. So we can go ahead and dump off. I think I have clay in a compacting door, right? Yes. Good. So we would have a huge line of sticky pistons like this, and then we would just do some fun redstone with that. So I am going to work on that redstone. I'm just going to do it off camera because I'm not really initially great at redstone. I get better at it as I get into it, so I just have to kind of get warmed up with it again. So that's going to take me a little while. I'll be back whenever it's done, and then I can show you kind of what I have planned. Yeah, so there we go. And now that makes this. Another problem that we're going to have here is this. This is going to leave behind a water problem. We can solve this pretty easily as well by placing down a dispenser here at the end that we can use to fill up water, or I don't know. I'll have to think about something to specifically solve that problem. But I think a dispenser would be an easy solution. And you've got to keep in mind, too, that this is not the only thing that we're going to be doing here. So what we're actually going to be doing with this signal is not going into this. It will actually be going into here. Alright, so what I was thinking is instead of having that, we would have essentially a space in between these. Every 2 connections, probably, I'm thinking. And so that would leave us, so what we would do is every 2 blocks, we would have... Hello? Oops. Every other block, technically. We would have this. And in fact, yeah, we'll probably... Yeah, that'll work. That'll be just fine, actually. Don't know why I was worried about that. And so for this, we'll want to input these, or set these to inputs, so that won't be too terribly difficult. And you can probably figure out where this is going now, is with these repeaters here, we will end up with like a cascading effect. Isn't that pretty cool? So I think with that, that just leaves us the problem of the dispenser at the end. So I'm just about at the point now where I want to make a redstone transmitter and a redstone receiver so that I can wirelessly transmit and receive redstone signals across this platform that I'm working on, because I've got it mostly working. I'm just working on the last couple of bits now, which are actually not going that badly. So I figured out a solution for the water bucket that was not as bad as I thought it was going to be, and so now all we have to do is get these guys going. So I just wanted to briefly show how these guys work, since I haven't done anything with them in this Let's Play. I did them in my 110, of course, but I still always like to show. So if you take a wireless transmitter, you'll see up in Wayla, up here at the top, it says channel -1 until I right-click it with another receiver. And now both of these have been set to channel 1. So these have now been paired, which will be very useful. Because what we want, and I've been working on filling in this area a little bit, but it's not quite perfect yet. What we want is for our signal to go into one of these areas here. So we'll have our wireless receiver here facing in, and this will be an input on red, which is perfect. And we can check and see if this is working pretty easily. So this is what I've got going so far, is if I walk, and then if I wait, I can just step right over it, and it'll fill up the bucket. So what I want now is, essentially, when I step over some of these other pressure plates, first of all, I want to dispense the water bucket anyways, because I may not walk straight out the center. The other thing I want to do is, and I could maybe actually solve that problem with tripwires, come to think of it. Might do that. But the other thing, well, no. Still. The other thing that I want to resolve is I want it so that when I step back over these, either way, it doesn't really matter. I want it to delay a redstone signal back over to this thing. And in fact, we're not even going to delay a redstone signal so much as we're going to delay a T flip-flop. Because right now we have these pressure plates that are causing this to essentially open, stay open for a little while, and then close. What I actually want is a T flip-flop. So yeah, and since I didn't step on the pressure plate back as I was walking over it again, the dispenser didn't go off to pick up another bucket, so that was my fault. But what we want is for, on this side, the redstone signals to also pick up from over here and go into some of these things. So I'm going to work on some of that stuff real quick, and again, be back in a little while. So what do you guys think of something like this? So this means, well, here, I guess I should have restarted it. So what this does, this is a toggle latch now. So as you can see, the water is refilling, and I'll show you how I did that. So I step on it, pistons extend, then I walk to the other side, and you can see I've got two tripwires, causing them all to retract. And then basically the way this works is I have a fluid placer with an infinite water source from an aqueous accumulator, and it will place down the water. Usually it makes it, sometimes it doesn't, but that's okay. It's not going to be 100% reliable, but it's better. So I think this is a decent solution. So now all that's really left is for me to move everything around from over here, and actually you can see we're actually making enough energy now that we have a buffer. So hooray, this is great. That means this guy is full. Means that we're finally catching up on our power supply, and at this point for me all that's left is to move all of this stuff over here, And I don't know what I'll use that building for at this point. I might just leave it for now and then decide later. So I'm going to move it in another little montage, and we'll see kind of how that goes. But everything should start chilling in here instead. And then our power will probably once again input and output from, I would imagine, right here instead. And then we'll make a couple of, probably just one right about, let me think, probably right about here-ish. And we'll have a pole on there that will replace this pole over here. So I'm going to go ahead and do that in a cut, and well, in a montage, and yeah, that shouldn't be that bad. Alright, so I think this is actually pretty good. So I have to repair this place a little bit. It basically just needs a bunch of blocks. Once I repair it, this will be back to normal. I don't know what I'll do with this area still, but it'll be here for something eventually. We could actually repurpose this for farming, automatic farming. If we decided to make more cloches and start auto-farming, this would actually be perfect for that. So I may very well repurpose it. I would also probably rebuild it a little bit so that it would look more farm-like, so maybe replace the floors with hay bales. Otherwise, though, this is pretty much done. Oh, I did forget one small step, and then we can actually call it an episode. I forgot in that montage, I had actually, for my own, I guess, convenience, removed the tripwire over here that was keeping everything together. And so now, step on it, I can walk over. Then this will evacuate and boom, refill the water. And you can see here that this is all working again. This was very easy to move. This was probably the easiest component of all of these to move. We have a little bit of spillage, mostly because I went through and added more items that it wasn't expecting, so that was my fault, or my doing, rather. And then this area is working. This is actually, I find that this is less efficient than this, not only because even though these produce a lot of power, or not as much power, but these produce power and these grow quickly, but I actually find that the bigger problem there is that this is actually using 120 RF per tick pretty much constantly. So up until everything levels out, this is actually, while we're making, a decent bit, I just did the math earlier, I remember, but, while we're making about 420 RF per tick, we're actually only making 300 RF per tick because 120 of it's coming right back into this machine again. So, yeah. I tried my best to keep with the aesthetic. I did change around these mechanisms a little bit. So these are both now outputting instead of one outputting and one inputting. I don't know why I really did that, but I just did. Coming down here, you can see this is the wiring. I've actually made a little wire basement for all of this time. I should probably make sure that it's not going to spawn mobs. And let's see, maybe a spot in the center here. Yeah. So that's pretty much done. So this is all available for us to use for, you can see the wiring underneath on both of these sides. And in fact, there's actually a whole wall's worth over here that I should have done as well that I forgot to. But, for the most part, this is all said and done. At this point, all I really need to do is get my stuff recharged, because you may have noticed in that montage my flux capacitor completely ran out again. I haven't been able to fully charge it just because of our power problems lately, but I definitely think that that should be solved pretty soon, considering we have all this power. So the one thing that is left that I may do in between episodes, so that you guys don't have to sit here and watch this reasonably boring process, is I will probably end up upgrading all of these to a couple of tiers up. So these are at the Invar or hardened tier. I'll probably go ahead and put these all the way up to reinforced, so I'll make some hardened glass and upgrade these, because we're producing enough redstone that we can validate that, and the higher the tier, the more power we can use, or we can produce with them. So I think that's been a super productive episode, and I'm going to call it there, but I have a couple of plans for the next few episodes coming up, which I am very excited about. So stay tuned for that for sure. Oh, there goes the bridge. So yeah, and let me know what you think about this little bridge platform. I kind of thought it was cool. I like that it refills the water for me automatically, and I think the idea of having this kind of centered in a water area, with the nice building here that kind of keeps everything cool. Plus it's going into the swampy area, so I kind of like that factor. I'm really proud of these, by the way. I know they're not a perfect circle, but they are relatively circular. So I'm very proud of how these turned out. And I need to start using X-tones a little more in my builds, so don't be surprised if I maybe swap out a few blocks here or there with that kind of stuff instead. Because I've been using pretty much the same small selection of blocks for a while now, and it's time to change the palette up a little bit. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Let me know if you have any thoughts or suggestions as to what I should be doing next, because now that we have decent power, we can start producing even more, and once we get to that point, there's a lot of stuff that we can start doing that I'm definitely looking forward to, one of which being auto crafting. So let me know if you guys have any suggestions, and until then, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you in the next one.